Hi guys, welcome. My name is Rennie McKay, Ren City, host of Sports and Shorts of Sorts, the show where each week we break down sports and end it with a little short from my life. So this is episode 45. Each episode we start by talking about jerseys, and the numbers match up with the episode number. So let's jump right into episode 45 here. So, a lot of dynamic players rock the 45, and we're going to start on the baseball diamond with some legendary pitchers. First one I have to mention, Bob Gibson, mythical pitcher, played his entire career at St. Louis Cardinals. Phenomenal career, 9-time All-Star, 2-time NL Cy Young winner. He could field 9 Golden Gloves. He won 2 World Series, MVP in both of those World Series wins. His best season came in '68, the year of the pitcher, they call it. This is the mythic part of him. He led the NL in strikeouts, won the Cy Young, and was also the NL MVP. He led the MLB in ERA with, get this, an insane 1.12 ERA, the lowest in modern era history. There are only 4 people to have lower averages for a season, and they played in 1880, 1914, 1884, and 1906. So this is unheard of what he did that season. He also threw a no-hitter and won in his career in 1971 against the eventual champion Pittsburgh Pirates that year. And he's in the elusive 3,000 strikeout club. Sits 16th all-time with strikeouts with 3,117. His 45 is retired by the Cardinals, and he's in their Hall of Fame. He's also immortalized with a bronze statue in front of Busch Stadium. And in 1981, he was inducted to the Baseball Hall of Fame on his first ballot, obviously. Unfortunately, Bob Gibson passed away in 2020 at the age of 84 after a battle with pancreatic cancer. From one legendary pitcher to another, next 45 I'll mention is a guy I watch quite a bit, Pedro Martinez. Icon. He's an icon back in the Dominican Republic. He'd get in the MLB with the Dodgers. Didn't excel until a few years later, and he was traded to the Montreal Expos. 97, he had a huge year in Montreal, going 17-8 with a 1.9 ERA and 305 strikeouts. 13 complete games. You won't see a lot of that nowadays. That same season, he won the NL Cy Young and became the only ever Expo to ever do so, and the franchise doesn't exist now, so it's probably not happening anytime soon. The next season, Pedro was up for a big payday, and he was traded to the Red Sox, where he'd sign a 6-year, $75 million deal, which was the largest for a pitcher at a time, which is pretty wild when you think of what Ohtani just got. So the trade looked good. Pedro would win the next 2 AL Cy Youngs. 99, probably the best when he won the pitching triple crown there, leading the league in wins, strikeouts, and ERA. And he was also a member of that curse-breaking 2004 World Series Red Sox team that won the first title since 1918. Solid pitcher for the Red Sox. Like I said, finishing in the top 4 of Cy Young voting 6 of his 7 years there, winning those 2 I alluded to earlier. When he became a free agent, he signed with the Mets, and he seemed to do pretty well until he was asked to change his undershirt by the umps, and in doing so, he slipped in the frickin' hallway and injured his hip. And from then on, he wasn't the same guy. He'd stop in Philly, and that's where it came to an end. But man, what a career! 8-time All-Star, 3-time Cy Young winner, led the MLB in ERA 5 times and strikeouts 3 times. Guy was a beast. His 45 is retired by the Red Sox. He's in the Hall of Fame, in the Boston Red Sox Hall of Fame, as well as the MLB Hall of Fame, inducted in 2015. Next MLB player, like I said, also happens to be a pitcher, more for a relieving role than a starter. Tug McGraw started his career with the Mets, but took a step back to report to the Marine Corps as a rifleman, where he became a trained killer, in his own words, he said there. After his time in the military, he'd returned to the Mets, was part of the '69 Mets team that won the World Series. He moved to Philly, where he'd help the Phillies win the World Series. And, they're first in history at the time. And McGraw, he was one of the best relievers in his day and is in the New York Mets Hall of Fame as well as the Phillies Wall of Fame. And fun fact, he's the biological father of country singer Tim McGraw. So it's pretty wild there. We'll go back to pitching and start with a current one, a damn good one, too. I'm talking Garrett Cole from the New York Yankees. He was number one overall pick in 2011 by the Pirates. A few years later, he'd come up to the big leagues, becoming an all-star with the Pirates, but he'd get traded to the Astros, where he had a few great seasons before signing with the Yankees for a then franchise record 9-year, $324 million, a little higher than Pedro's was that I talked about earlier. That franchise record would only last until Aaron Judge signed his huge contract with the Yankees. So, but Cole, he's been a good fit in the Yankees. He's won AL Cy Young, first of his career last year, and the age of 33, he's still got a lot to go here. He's been to 6 All-Star games, 3 All MLB first teams, and 1 All MLB second team. He's led the American League in ERA twice, led the MLB in strikeouts twice, and like I said, he's got that one Cy Young I've mentioned, so pretty damn good career, and you can expect these numbers to grow here. So we'll go to another current pitcher. This one will go to the National League in the Philadelphia Phillies. Zach Wheeler, excellent number 45. He'd get his start with the Mets, pitching really well with them, but then he'd deal with injuries, as a lot of guys do. And, he wasn't living up to his expectations, so he'd end up signing with the Phillies and kind of found his groove, becoming an all-star, and he was announced to the All-MLB second team. Led the league in strikeouts in 2021 and won his first Gold Glove last year. He's a late bloomer, but very solid on the mound. One last quick one here. Cecil Fielder, the father of former baseball player Prince Fielder, bounced around a bit, but he could certainly crush the ball. Led the AL in home runs twice and RBIs 3 times. 3-time All-Star and 2-time Silver Slugger winner. Also a member of the 96 World Series Yankees team. So we'll leave the diamond for the hardwood. Probably the most famous person to wear 45 was when Michael Jordan returned from baseball, and it was only brief. So if you've got one of those jerseys, hold on to it. Probably worth a lot. We talked MJ on number 23 with what he's more known for, so we'll mention some other ones. First non-MJ basketball player is a current one of the best scorers in the game. Tom Cleveland's Donovan Mitchell. He's a stud at Louisville, first team All-ACC his last year there. He'd get drafted 13th by the Nuggets, but was immediately shipped to Utah. He looked to be on his path right away, winning slam dunk contest his rookie season. He's part of the all-rookie first team. Wasn't just rookie accolades either. He helped the Jazz get to the playoffs, even though they were knocked out by the Thunder in the first round. But he, Rudy Gobert, and that Jazz crew, they were regular attendees in the NBA playoffs. In that bubble playoff, him and Jamal Murray and the Nuggets had one of the best duels you've ever seen in the playoffs. Mitchell would score 57 and then follow that up with a 51 the next game, joining just MJ and Allen Iverson as the only people that go over 50 twice in one series. That's just crazy. But that team just kind of peaked and couldn't get further, so the Jazz blew it up. Mitchell and Gobert were shipped out. Mitchell's been fitting awesome with the Cavs. Him and Darius Garland, one of the best backcourts in the NBA. Made his first All-NBA last season when he was picked to the All-NBA second team. He's already a 4-time All-Star and probably going to hit his 5th. He's been injured a little this year, but when he's been on the court, he's been amazing, as he usually is. There's talks that, even though he's under contract still at 2026, that he might get moved. He's a New York guy. Some are saying the Knicks want to get him. I don't know. The Knicks just made a good move with OG, but if they can get a guy like Mitchell, that'd be something. But the next hooper I got to mention, Chuck Person, known as the Rifleman for his outside shooting. Beast at Auburn University, helping them to their first 3 NCAA tournament appearances, and played with some pretty good players at Auburn. Teammates were Charles Barkley, Chris Morris, all great players that played there. Person's the all-time leader in points, field goals attempted, and 3rd in rebounds. Amazing in college. Got him drafted 4th overall by the Pacers, winning Rookie of the Year, obviously on the all-rookie first team. A few years later, he'd average 21 points a game, and then he'd get moved to the Timberwolves, where he'd struggle, averaging 1.6 during the 93 season. I'd say that's a bit of a drop-off. He'd move to the Spurs, where he'd look like the Rifleman of old, setting a record for three-pointers by a reserve player with 164 in the 94-95 season. It stood for a while, but it's been passed now. Wayne Ellington now holds that mark, and he set the record in 2017 with 218. So the volume of three-point shots has obviously gone up, but Person was ahead of the game there. He'd end up playing with the Hornets and Supersonics before retiring. His best years were back when he's a youngin' in Indiana. You get in the coaching, becoming a great assistant, but he was involved in that corruption scandal at Auburn, and hasn't really got back to coaching since. His brother Wesley Person, another great shooter, also played in the NBA. And Chuck Person's kind of a good segue into our next mention. I'm talking about the Duncan Dutchman, Rick Smits. He played in the Netherlands, in his native Netherlands, before moving to the States to play college basketball at Marist College. Not a big name school there, but he dominated, leading that school to their first ever tournament appearance. That led him to getting drafted second overall. He'd make all-rookie first team after Steve Stepanovich hit a dead spot in the bone of his left knee and had to retire at the age of 28. Brutal for him. That opened the door for Smits and the 7'4" guy. He became the number 2 behind Reggie Miller. They had a good thing going there. He was an all-star in 98. It was his only all-star appearance. Foot injuries really limited what he could do. They say he had nerve damage in his feet from wearing tight shoes as a teen. But I mean, it must be hard to find shoes over in the Netherlands for this 7'4" guy that aren't cogs, I guess. But yeah, the foot problems led to Smits retiring after the 99-2000 season after the Pacers lost in the finals to Shaq and Kobe and the Lakers. But Smits, great career, good pioneer for European big men coming to the NBA. His 45's retired at Marist College. He's one of the first players from that school to make it to the NBA. His number isn't retired with the Pacers, and there's a lot of debate to that, but to be fair, the Pacers have only ever retired 4 players and 1 coach, and he had a different number until, who I alluded to earlier, Person was traded, and then Smits was like, hey, can I get my 45 back? And he did. So, yeah, a little bit of debate whether he'll have his number retired there. I don't know if it's quite worthy. He wasn't on the level of a Reggie Miller, but solid player nonetheless. Next basketball player I'll mention, true NBA Iron Man. I'm talking AC Green. He's a beast at Oregon State with the Beavers, winning 3-time first-time All Pac-10 player. Won Pac-10 Player of the Year during his time there. Got him drafted 23rd overall by the Lakers in the 85 draft. Big part of those Lakers teams that won some titles. He was Lakers leading rebounder 6 of his 8 years with the team. Like I said, he was part of those 2 titles of 87 and 88. He'd make all-defensive second team once, and he made 1 All-Star game in 90. He left the Lakers to sign with the Suns in his final year, and hoping that Green would be the missing piece after they had made the title the year prior, and he put up a career-high 14.7 points per game. The Suns wouldn't get far in the playoffs there. From Phoenix, Green would go to Dallas, where as a Maverick, he'd pass Randy Smith for the most consecutive games played at 906. He'd keep that going until he'd return to the Lakers, winning a title in 2000, and he'd go to Miami for his last league in the season, his career. And his mark just kept growing. So when he retired, it was 1,192 consecutive games played. That's a record that probably won't get broken with load management, everything like that nowadays. That Ironman record is probably going to stick. We'll see. His play at Oregon State got his 45 retired there. And one cool fact about AC Green was his loyalty to his Christian faith. He was known to abstain from smoking or drinking booze. Even in celebrations with champagne, he'd have no part of it. And I guess teammates and opponents would try to get him to break by sending women to his hotel room, but they couldn't get him. I guess he's known to come in a virgin and end his career a virgin until he got married. And he's stayed abstinent through that career there, and even started the AC Green Youth Foundation, which operates youth camps to promote abstinence, I guess. I don't know. To each their own, right? Staying with basketball, next number 45, Rudy Tomjanovich. Probably no more for his coaching than playing, but he could ball. He was a beast at Michigan University. His career rebounding record still stands. The San Diego Rockets would draft him at 2nd overall in the 1970 draft, and they'd relocate to Houston the following season. He'd spend his entire career with the Rockets. 5 All-Star games, 4th leading scorer in Rockets history, behind James Harden and Hall of Famers Calvin Murphy and Hakeem Olajuwon. The part on the court he's probably most remembered for is pretty brutal. In a game between the Lakers and the Rockets, Tomjanovich ran the center court to break up a fight. Lakers' Kermit Washington caught him out with the corner of his eye and just swung and the connection, the sound of it hitting him. Oh my God. Hit him right in the face. It shattered Rudy's face, inflicting life-threatening injuries to his head and spine, leaving him sidelined 5 months. He'd eventually make a recovery and make his last All-Star game the final season, but it was so memorable. John Feinstein wrote a book, The Punch, 1 Night, 2 Lives, and the Fight That Changed Basketball Forever. It's on my reading list for sure. Tomjanovich would retire from basketball but he'd stay in Houston as a scout, working up to assistant coach. Don Chaney would resign. Rudy T would become the coach, leading the Rockets to the playoffs. He'd get the permanent gig. From there, he'd lead the Rockets to 2 titles back-to-back, 94 and 95. 2 seasons Michael Jordan was out of the 90s as well. But I don't know. This team could have gave them a good run for their money. We'll never know, obviously. But, yeah, this is one of the only teams other than the Bulls, to go back-to-back during the decade. He'd unfortunately have to leave the Rockets due to bladder cancer, but he'd make a full recovery from. He tried to come back to coaching, going to the Lakers, but he couldn't coach there. He felt a little overwhelmed. But hey, his number 45 is retired at Michigan University. He's in the Michigan and Houston Sports Hall of Fame, and he's in the Basketball Hall of Fame for his coaching. Another basketball player we'll mention, more for what he did in college and the pros, talking big man Rafe LaFrentz. He put up huge numbers at Kansas University, playing alongside future Hall of Famer Paul Pierce. For LaFrentz joined Tim Duncan and Shaq as the only players in the 90s to earn first-team All-America twice, and that helped him get drafted 3rd overall by the Nuggets. He put decent numbers up as a Nuggets player, but he never blossomed into the NBA player people imagined he would. He still had a good career, and he probably thrived better in today's game, but great player, and to have his number 45 retired at Kansas University, that's pretty big. But I'll wrap up the NBA portion with a few names of current players. Delano Banton, he's with the Celtics. He spent some time with the Raptors there, Canadian guy. Knicks Pogo Stick, Jericho Sims, who's still out with an injury. Maybe some nostalgic names, more known for what they did in college and the pros. Cole Aldrich, DeJuan Blair. Have to shout out Rasul Butler as well. He bounced around a bit. Really good shooter. He usually donned the 45. I mentioned him. We lost him too soon. In 2018, car crash killed him and his wife. He's only 38 years old. Bummer for that. From the basketball court to the gridiron, first NFL player I mentioned, Kenny Easley, played at UCLA where he started as a true freshman at safety. He was a beast as a Bruin, 3-time All-American. He wore the 5 there, which is what's retired, but when he'd get drafted 4th overall by the Seahawks, he'd wear 45. He'd wear that his career there. He was a beast out of the gate. The AFC Defensive Rookie of the Year, member of the All-Rookie team, one of the best safeties in his days, and he'd made 5 Pro Bowls, 4 first-team All-Pros, 1 second-team All-Pro. 84 was probably his best season, leading the league in interceptions with 10, tying a club record. He also returned 2 of those for touchdowns, and that led to easily winning Defensive Player of the Year. First safety to win the award since Dick Anderson, who you might remember from episode 40. But prior to that season, the Seahawks were trying to trade him. They ended up moving to the Cardinals, but during the physical, they found he had a serious kidney disease, and that had to void the career, which meant he spent his whole career as a Seahawk. He's in the Ring of Honor. His 45 is retired. He's in the College and Pro Football Hall of Fame. Second and last NFL player to be mentioned here. Current one, Tampa Bay Buccaneers linebacker Devin White. So he'll be playing tonight in the playoff game. He was a beast at LSU. Become the first player in SEC history to name Defensive Player of the Week 4 times in one season. After his junior season, he jumped to the NFL, where the Bucs would take him 5th overall in the 2019 draft. Fantastic rookie player, being part of the all-rookie team. He'd be second-team All-Pro the next season, and he was a big part of that Super Bowl 55 winning team that had Tom Brady. The next year, he'd make his first Pro Bowl appearance. He did demand a trade this past off season, but he wasn't dealt, and good for the Bucs he wasn't. He's been a great player for them. Only one that came to me in hockey, Aaron Asham. I know he didn't have a career that would blow you away, but the Portage La Prairie, Manitoba native had a pretty good career, coming in 2002-03 with the Islanders. That was his best season, where he had 34 points, 15 goals. He'd play for the Canadiens, Islanders, Devils, Flyers, Penguins, and Rangers. Yeah, and he was the only hockey player I could think of with 45. Last one that I'll mention, he comes from the footy pitch, Mario Balotelli. He's worn a few different numbers. He's wearing 99 with Turkish club Adana Demirspor right now, but he wore 45 with his time at Inter Milan, Man City, AC Milan, Liverpool, and Monza. He's one of those guys. He could be one of the best strikers for you, or he could disappear, but he's still playing professionally. He's represented Italy at some competitions. Good player that could just never reach his potential, I think. But hey, that was a pretty long Jersey segment, honoring the greats. And let's jump into this week of sports, all the way back to last Monday in this time machine, We'll start where young adults start before starting adulthood. College. NCAA championship game finally arrived, and yeah, Michigan kind of got off and running. Donovan Edwards busting out a 41-yard touchdown run, and then he'd follow that with a 46-yard touchdown run. Michigan would get a field goal before Washington would get their first touchdown of the game when Penix Jr. would find Jalen McMillan. 17-10 at halftime. You're like, oh, this could be close. But then things blew up in the fourth. Blake Corum would get 2 touchdown runs. And from there, it was really over. J.J. McCarthy managed the game perfect. Michigan winning the national championship. First national championship for Coach Jim Harbaugh. I think that was the last game for him. I think he's going to make the jump to the NFL here. We'll see. But that's what I'm thinking. And then there was news that came out after the game that almost overshadowed the game itself. Nick Saban is retiring from coaching. 72-year-old won 7 national championships, 1 at LSU, 6 at Alabama. He's an icon in the football world. And the announcement came as a surprise to some. Some say the NIL world is just a little much for him. Others are like, come on, the guy's 72 years old. He's done it all. Maybe he just wants to retire on his own terms. Either way, congrats to a great coach who had a fantastic college coaching career and really some say is perhaps the best college coach ever. That's debatable, but yeah, you got to have his name in there. And it didn't take long for Alabama to replace the legend. They looked at the championship game and lured away Washington Huskies head coach Kalen DeBoer. He just won the last Pac-12 championship, and like I said, he was in the title game. He lost that game, but he won the job of a lifetime. The 49-year-old inherits one of the most coveted jobs in college football. Replacing a legend's always tough to walk in their shoes, but he's got a lot on his plate there, entering the SEC, the toughest conference they're saying in football. And I guess the announcement was a surprise to the Husky players who were just getting over a loss in this game, and now you got the loss of your coach. It's like, oi, oi, oi. Also around that Monday time back then, the Washington Commanders fired Ron Rivera. We were wondering who would all get fired on that day. Arthur Smith was also fired. Titans fired Coach Mike Vrabel after 6 seasons. That one was kind of surprised, but they have missed the playoffs the last few years. Then it was announced Pete Carroll would not return as a Seattle Seahawks head coach. He'll remain with the franchise in some capacity. That seems like a sideways move of letting someone go without letting them go, but I don't know. We'll see who this team gets going forward. And what does this do for Geno Smith? Is the new guy going to want Geno? I don't know. And then big news is just as big as Nick Saban, and as big a name as Nick Saban. They were on the same staff before. Bill Belichick, after 24 seasons with the New England Patriots, it's announced they're parting ways. They had a big press conference, Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick. I mean, the guy's got a sick resume. He's got all his titles with the Patriots. He never really won anything there without Brady. So that's always going to be on him. Maybe he'll have to come back somewhere, but it's not sure. We're not sure if he's retiring, what's going on. But they found their replacement right away as well. They promoted from within Jared Mayo, former Patriots linebacker. He's been the linebackers coach on the Patriots staff since 2019. He's the youngest coach in the NFL now at 37. Wow. It's a little older than me, I guess. But, yeah, great hire for the Pats. It's always tough, like I was just alluding to with Nick Saban. It's tough to walk in someone else's footsteps of such a legend. But I'm hoping he does well there. And, the fans are out in Boston. If he doesn't do well, they'll let him hear it. And they'll probably be racial about it because it's Boston. I hate to say it. But their history. But current jobs now in the NFL: Carolina Panthers, Los Angeles Chargers, Atlanta Falcons, Washington Commanders, Tennessee Titans, Seattle Seahawks, and Las Vegas Raiders. Although it's said the Raiders are really leaning towards re-signing Antonio Pierce as head coach, but you never know with Mark Davis. He could be leaning one way, change it the other. A lot of players are backing him up, though. They want Pierce back. Max Crosby, a star defensive line player, said he'd leave if they didn't bring him back. So that's a pretty bold statement. So we'll see if they bring him back. But like I said, if you go back to episode 35 after they were winning with Pierce, I said, don't mess this up. So I'm hoping he goes back and listens to that. That's Mark Davis. You never know. From football and talk to football on the field. Super Wildcard Weekend. Super, so it was super good. Well, not a super good start. Browns and Texans that look potentially good. You had rookie phenom C.J. Stroud going against the old wily Joe Flacco, potential comeback player of the year for the resurgence of his game. And the way it started looked like we were in for a close one. Kareem Hunt rushing touchdown. Texans would get a field goal. And then, C.J. Stroud would hit Nico Collins to put the Texans ahead. But then the Browns would answer. This time, Kareem Hunt catching one from Flacco. But then Houston would answer right away when Stroud would hit Brevin Jordan on a 76-yard scoring play. The Browns couldn't answer that, so Stroud would find Dalton Schultz and just for the end of the first half. And then in the third quarter, when the Browns down, they were looking to come back. It didn't go well. Back-to-back game-crushing pick sixes. First, Flacco would hit Steven Nelson, who would return at 82 yards for the pick six. Then he'd find Christian Harris, who would return at 36 yards for the pick six. Brutal. In the fourth, Devin Singletary would add another touchdown for Houston, really blowing the score up. 45-14 win for Houston. Congrats to them. It's only the fifth different combination of African-American coach and QB to make the playoffs. So it's awesome to see this dynamic duo doing their thing and hope they can keep this going forward. Their magical season continues, but the Browns, you had one of the best defenses in the NFL, and you go out like this. A real tough go at quarterback for them. You know, Flacco had that revelation and making the Browns think they had a chance, but they still have that ridiculous Deshaun Watson contract. So we'll see where his health is, where he is mentally, and where the Browns are going forward. The other game Saturday, Dolphins and Chiefs. You know, the Dolphins could have avoided this cold game altogether if they had just beat the Bills on the last game of the year. They could have been in Florida, but no, they were in Kansas City freezing their ass off in the Tyreek Hill Bowl. The cheetah-like receiver was returning to where he started it all at Arrowhead, and his old team would get the first start, or the better start, when Patrick Mahomes would find Rice and for an 11-yard touchdown. And after a field goal for the Chiefs, Tua Tagovailoa would hit Tyreek Hill on a 53-yard score. A few more Butker field goals for halftime. The Chiefs were up 16-7 going into the break. Another Chiefs field goal, and then they'd put it away when Isaiah Pacheco would run it in. So, yeah, it wasn't very good for the Dolphins at all. An interesting scene for Patrick Mahomes there on a scramble. His helmet actually cracked. He got another play in before the refs were like, whoa, what's going on here? Made him change helmets. So, yeah, it's scenes at Arrowhead were great. You had Taylor Swift doing her thing. You had Andy Reid's mustache literally freezing. To win the Dolphins, they struggled offensively. They couldn't really do much, right? They couldn't get the running game going. Tua struggled. This was brutal. Dolphins came in the playoffs 1-5 against teams in the postseason, and it showed against Kansas City. Like, they have a team that can maybe repeat. I don't know. It's going to be tough for Kansas City here. But for, like I said, the Dolphins, I wouldn't give up on Tua yet, but this is 2 straight seasons of making the playoffs and two times going out in the wild card round. So I don't think they need to give up on Tua yet, but they got to do a few more things that don't make them so self-reliant on those big offensive plays. I don't know. We'll see. Sunday, the big game. I was going to wear another Packers jersey, but I've worn them in the past 2. I felt like it, though, because they went into Dallas to take on the Cowboys. It was Jordan Love's first playoff game, leading the youngest ever team to make the playoffs in the Dallas, this team that wants to win it all. Packers win coin toss. They want the ball, and they take the crowd out of the game a bit. Love would methodically lead the Packers down the field, capping it off with an Aaron Jones touchdown. Dak would look to answer, and he'd hit Jair Alexander, who we didn't even know would play. He tweaked his ankle before the game, but he'd play. Picked off Dak Prescott, leading to another Aaron Jones touchdown, who just loves playing against the Cowboys. I'll get him more out of those numbers in a bit. But the Packers defense would get the ball back to Love, who would hit Dontavian Wicks for a pass. The shot of Jordan Love throwing a dart off his back foot has become a common sight in the NFL. I love it. After that touchdown, Anders Carlson would miss another extra point. He's missed 6 extra points season and playoffs. It's crazy to me. But he's a rookie, I guess. But Cowboys were hoping for any points, but instead Dak would get picked off again, and this time it would go the other way for a score. Darnell Savage returned at 64 yards to pay dirt. Then the Packers were up 27-0 with 1:50 left in the first half. Cowboys would finally get on the board when Dak would hit Jake Turd Ferguson for a 1-yard touchdown on literally the last play of the half. giving some hope to this Cowboys team. Former Cowboys coach Jimmy Johnson on the Fox telecast was losing his mind on the Cowboys, calling him out, saying he needs to play better. Fellow analyst Michael Strahan is ready to suit up again and play. Real inspiration, but I don't know if it transferred to the actual team. They'd open with a field goal, only to have Aaron Jones get his third touchdown in the game for the Packers. And Cowboys would answer with a touchdown of their own, but Packers would get another score. This time Jordan Love would find Luke Musgrave wide open. I mean wide open for a 30-yard touchdown. And Love would then find Romeo Doubs for his third touchdown pass of the game, making it 48-16. Dak would make it a little better and make it a little nervy, like real late, getting 2 straight touchdowns to Jake Turd Ferguson. So it would be 48-32, but man, huge debut for Jordan Love. You got the aura of Favre and Aaron Rodgers, and you got all this. You're coming in, your first ever playoff game, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 5 incompletions. It's amazing. A lot of that help did come through the running game. The Packers were without Quadzilla, A.J. Dillon, but man, Aaron Jones carried this team. I mentioned his dominance over the Cowboys. The Texas-born running back in 4 games against the Cowboys, he's 4-0. He's carried the ball 83 times for 488 yards. That's almost 6 yards a carry. 12 catches for 115 yards with 9 touchdowns. Said his idol was Cowboys icon Emmitt Smith, who's obviously in episode 22. It really shows. You could not have drawn it up better for this Packers team. I was in shock. I cheered so loud on that pick 6. Our cat Nermal ran out of the room. Sorry about that, Nerms. But man, so much excitement for the Packers. And the Cowboys, like I said, I was nervous about my team going in this game, but this Dallas team, they did not look like contenders. They looked like they usually do in the playoffs. Pretenders, you know. Dak was off. He said he sucked, and, you know, he had 403 yards, but on 60 attempts with 2 picks. Running game, non-existent. Without any threat of that run, combined with that Packers zone scheme, Dak struggled. He was also off on CeeDee Lamb early. He kept missing throws. The broadcasters were covering it like a couples therapy, but you could see something was a little off. And I guess Adam Schefter said sources believe that Mike McCarthy would always be judged on how the Cowboys' last game of the season went. And if that's the case, he's probably gone. By the time this will be going, or tomorrow, he's probably gone. If that's the case, we'll see. That'll be a highly coveted job. But, yeah, who'd have thought a wildcard weekend beatdown at home by the youngest team in the league. Largest first half deficit in Cowboys playoff history. I think he's got to be going. Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator, he's a hot commodity. Maybe Bill Belichick, fresh out of New England. What way to stick it to your old boss by going to a rival owner in Dallas? And maybe the aura of America's team could convince Harbaugh to disregard the Chargers and join the Cowboys. These are all hypotheticals for a job that may or may not be open, but like a 24-hour convenience store, I'm leaning towards open. We'll stay tuned to see what happens in Dallas. The nightcap on Sunday, our last hope of a close game, the Matt Stafford Bowl. The legendary Lions quarterback was traded to the Rams, where he'd get finally postseason success on his way to winning the Super Bowl. Going the other way was Jared Goff, who was a former number 1 pick by the Rams, leading them to a Super Bowl and losing. They had lost confidence in him. They shifted to Detroit and thinking his career was done. He was part of this huge turnaround with Coach Campbell, and now they're going for their first playoff win since 1992. The NFL scriptwriters, they nailed it with this one. You'd have David Montgomery at running back for most of the first drive, and he'd cap it off with a touchdown. Rams would answer with a field goal, and Stafford, he took a hit on his hand. It was bleeding pretty good, but you know Stafford wasn't going to leave this one. Next Lions drive, they wouldn't use running back Montgomery. They'd use running back Jahmyr Gibbs more, and then he'd cap it off with a touchdown. Talk about a 1-2 punch. Rams would finally get a touchdown when who else but rookie sensation Puka Nacua would get a 50-yard touchdown pass from Stafford. Fellow rookie Lion Sam Laporta, who was a surprise to even play after hyperextending his knee in the season finale against the Vikings, but he suited up, he got a touchdown. Then just minutes later, Stafford would find Tutu Atwell on a 38-yard touchdown score. 21-17 the halftime. We had a game, finally. The third quarter would just be some field goals in exchange, and then the fourth quarter, Lions defense would again hold up, force the Rams to hit another field goal. It's 24-23, and that's as close as the Rams would get. Lions would do their victory formation in front of an emotional Detroit crowd. Barry Sanders was there, Eminem, Calvin Johnson, everybody was out to see it. Like I said, first playoff win since 1992. I was just a pup. Good for the Lions. But man, for the Rams, you cannot be disappointed. This is supposed to be a rebuilding year. They end up making the playoffs. They had young studs all over the field. 2 fifth-round rookies stealing the show. Kyron Williams, great running back. Of course, Puka Nacua, setting records for yards, catches. So, other playoff losses are a little more devastating. These guys have a lot of optimism going forward for the Rams. They're trending in the right direction. And then we have 2 games Monday. We were supposed to have one, but yeah, the game on Sunday between Pittsburgh and Buffalo was moved because of the blizzard going on. It looks bad. It looks like one of those Buffalo storms. Not safe for the fans to get to and from the game. So I'll be going on 3:30 today, Saskatchewan time. At the beginning of the season, I picked Bills and 49ers in the Super Bowl. So I'm leaning Buffalo in this one, but this weather could be a wild card. Josh Allen, he's a dynamic quarterback, one of the best in the league, but he's also kind of fucking crazy with the ball. So he could throw some demoralizing turnovers. He could win the game or blow the game for Buffalo. And say what you want about the Steelers and their cockroach refusal to die attitude, but they're in the dance now. Anything can happen. Mason Rudolph can continue to lead the sleigh tonight without turning the ball over, and Pittsburgh could steal this. They have that 2-headed running back beast of Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, so who knows? I'm excited for that one. I think the Bills can take it, but as everyone shouldn't, don't count out the Steelers. Eagles and Buccaneers, last game of Super Wildcard Weekend. Eagles and Bucks, the Eagles look poised to win the NFC Championship as early in the season, but their struggles have them dropped. A lot of people questioning them, including myself. You had Jalen Hurts with that finger injury. A.J. Brown's not even suiting up this game. They do get Devontae Smith back, so that'll help for the Eagles, but they are beat up and really hurting. Baker Mayfield was limited in practice, but he's tough. He wasn't missing this one. So this is an intriguing matchup it's a roll of a dice kind of outcome. Eagles could look like they did early in the season, blow this game up, or they'll struggle and Baker will make a late play to seal the win for the Bucs. I'm excited for this one. I think the Eagles should win, but again, anything can happen. So with 2 games left in the wild card round, some matchups are still uncertain. The only for sure matchup we know is the divisional round with the 49ers hosting my Packers. Packers do not have a good playoff history against 49ers. I'm a little worried, but hey, maybe this Packers team is a little too young and they don't remember the history. And the Lions will take on the winner of the Eagles-Bucks game. In the AFC, you have a little more magic that can happen. The Ravens will either take on the Texans, or if the Steelers beat the Bills, they'll take on the Steelers. Kansas City will either host the Texans, or if Pittsburgh beats Buffalo, the Chiefs will host the Steelers. So my heart says go Pack go, but like I said, my preseason podcast prediction on the 49ers winning the Super Bowl. We'll see what happens there. I can't publicly be seen rooting against my Packers, so even though at the beginning of the year I picked San Fran, kind of hoping the Packers win. The Lions should match up well with Eagles or Bucks, so there's a chance we could see an NFC North conference title game, and that's what I'm hoping happens. In the AFC, it's hard to decide who's even playing who, but I feel the Bills should win. Like I said, no one expected Pittsburgh to get in, so yeah, I have the Bills winning that. Then I have the Buffalo continuing their great play, beating Kansas City and Taylor Swift. And then I have Baltimore beating Houston, setting up a Ravens-Bills conference game. But we'll see. We'll go to the footy. The footy pitch, there was some sad news. German legend Franz Beckenbauer passed away at 78. His health has kind of gradually declined the past few years. He's battling Parkinson's, dementia, and he has been undergoing some heart operations. He's one of the best ever to play in the beautiful game. He'll be missed, but his play will be remembered forever. We had some midweek cups to wrap up. There was the last third-round matchup in the FA Cup. Man U easily took care of League One side Wigan Athletic, so they won that one 2-0. They advanced. Fourth round of the FA Cup will be going down the weekend, or the 25th to 29th, that Thursday to Sunday. The Carabao Cup, another tournament in the UK, went down. We're in the semifinals now. Championship side Middlesbrough, shocking Chelsea 1-0. Then in the other semifinal, a dramatic comeback for Liverpool, who was down 1-0, came back to win 2-1 over Fulham. The second leg of those matches will go down the 23rd and 24th. So we'll see what happens and who goes to the final in the Carabao Cup. There was one game left in the Copa del Rey. I talked about it in the last episode. There was a power outage for extra time. And they're like, well, we can't play. There's no power. So they said, fuck it. We'll play the next day from the start. And it was 1-1 after 90 minutes. So they'd have to go to extras. Extra time wouldn't solve anything. We'd go to penalties. And third tier side, Unionistas, upset La Liga side Villarreal. I can't believe that. A third tier team at this point in the term. Oof. It's got to be tough for Villarreal to lose that one. They had to wait another day and lose. Ugh, brutal. In Italy, you had the Coppa Italia going on, and you had some big matches with some Serie A sides. Fiorentina and Bologna, scoreless game, go to penalties. Everyone hit their shot except for Bologna's Stefan Posch. He missed the net by fucking way off. Fiorentina held on. They're going to the semifinals. Lazio and Roma would meet, and this one was a doozy of a duty. Lots of big chances. Lazio would get a penalty early in the second half. Zaccagni would put it away. Lazio would take the win. Real close of Roma to equalize. They couldn't get it. Big win for Lazio as Roma gets knocked out of there. AC Milan, Atalanta. This was a great quarterfinal match. Late in the first half, Atalanta manager Gasparini, 2 straight yellow cards, so he was dismissed from the game. Then moments later, it went worse for Atalanta as Milan stud Rafael Leao smashed the ball into the net, putting them ahead. But then not even 2 minutes later, Koopmeiners would score, and we'd have a tie game here. But in the second half, Atalanta would get rewarded a penalty, and Koopmeiners would score, giving Atalanta the huge comeback win as they bounce AC Milan from the tournament. And then the final quarterfinal in the Coppa Italia was between Juventus and Frosinone. The Polish striker Milik would get a hat trick, and American Weston McKennie continuing to shine right now with Juventus, picking up a few assists. Easy 4-0 win for them. So you got your semifinals set up in the Coppa Italia. They won't be happening until April, though, so they don't have to worry about it for a while. Juventus will be taking on Lazio. Fiorentina taking on Atalanta. But like I said, that's a few months away. But then we'd return to some actual domestic football here. No cups. We'd have some league play. And in the Premier League, there were only 5 because there's a lot of FA Cup replays going on this week. So they couldn't clutter them all with more games. Such a busy schedule. They're almost being knackered at this point. But we did have some games. Burnley hosted Luton Town, and Burnley looked like they were going to get a much-needed win. They got a goal by Amdouni in the first half, and it all looked settled. But then in stoppage time, Carlton Morris would score, equalizing for Luton Town, and Burnley lost his mind. Burnley new owner J.J. Watt took to Twitter to say how outrageous it is because they VAR checked it, and they still allowed the goal. But I even replied to him, among others. He said, my response was his keeper looked like a wide receiver running into a defensive player looking for the PI because he knew he couldn't get to the ball. So I believe it was the right call. It's tough for Burnley because they're still in that relegation zone, and that win would have really helped. But tough go. That's the way it is sometimes in footy. Chelsea would rely on a first-half stoppage time penalty from Cole Palmer to secure a win in the West London Derby against Fulham. Everton and Villa would play to a scoreless draw. Newcastle hosted Man City in the battle of 2 rich-ass teams. City would go ahead off a beautiful backheel finish by Bernardo Silva. And then they looked to double their lead, but Dubravka made huge saves for Newcastle in this one. And it was big because Newcastle would equalize on a long ball to Alexander Isak. He'd put it right in the corner, tie it up. Not even 2 minutes later, Anthony Gordon would run down the side before curling one in, putting Newcastle up 2-1 after 37 minutes. They were doing awesome. And then in the second half, in the 69th minute, Kevin De Bruyne, he's trying to return from injury. And man, does he look good. It only took him 5 minutes to get a pass, put it in the corner, tie the game at 2. And Man City, they've been lacking goals a bit without Erling Haaland. But in the 82nd minute, they brought on 20-year-old fellow Norwegian Oscar Bob. And De Bruyne showed why he's one of the best in the world with a perfect pass that Bob would control. Little footwork, put it in the net. Huge comeback win for Man City and more heartbreak for Newcastle. Man U hosted Tottenham in the last fixture of the weekend. We had some excitement there. Tottenham was without Son, and it was showing a bit. Rasmus Holland keeping the Norwegian goals going here. He would score 3 minutes into the game, but Richarlison would equalize for Tottenham. Then late in the first half, Hoyland would set up Rashford. And that lead didn't last long. Early into the second half, Bentancur would score for Tottenham, and that one would end as a draw. I wouldn't break into the table here yet because there's still, like I said, lots of games to be played. So we'll go to Germany in the Bundesliga. They returned after their long holiday break. Starting off really well, Bayern Munich destroyed Hoffenheim 3-0. Jamal Musiala from episode 42 got a brace, and Harry Kane got a late one in that one. Bayern Leverkusen continuing their unbeaten streak into the new calendar year, getting a 94th minute stoppage time goal by Palacios, who blasted into the net, breaking Augsburg fans' hearts all at the same time. Eintracht Frankfurt got a big 1-0 win over Leipzig through an early goal. Borussia Dortmund needed some wins, and they got one over Darmstadt. Jadon Sancho, he's kind of been a bust in his time at Man U, not getting along with Erik ten Hag, so they put him on loan back to Dortmund, where he'd get an immediate impact, picking up an assist. And then Stuttgart didn't start the year they wanted to. I think they're still in holiday mode. They gave up a goal to Mönchengladbach just seconds into the game, and they could never recover. So after 17 matches, except for Bayern Munich and Union Berlin, who are still needing to make up for that snowed out match, you have Bayern Leverkusen sitting atop the Bundesliga, Bayern Munich in second with a game in hand. Stuttgart and Leipzig round out the third and fourth spot, despite both those teams losing this past weekend. And those losses have really opened the door for Dortmund to slither back into the top four. We'll see if they can get it going. Go to Italy, some Serie A footy going down, and last year's champs Napoli got a 96-minute goal to seal a comeback win over Salernitana. They hadn't won a game since December 16th, so maybe this can turn their season around a bit. Hellas Verona would ride a wave of an early goal to take a 2-1 win over Empoli, despite losing a man late in the match to a red card. Inter Milan beat up on Monza 5-1. I'm wearing Inter Milan right now because they signed Tajon Buchanan. The Canadian will be suiting up soon. The first Canadian to suit up in the Serie A. That's why I'm wearing the Inter Milan jersey, by the way. But yeah, they beat Monza 5-1. Lazio beat Lecce on a second-half goal by former West Ham player Felipe Anderson. Cagliari played Bologna, and they beat them 2-1. Bologna seemed to have fallen back to earth after their hot start. The team's been struggling as of late. Milan hosted Roma, beat them 3-1. Genoa and Torino they played to a scoreless draw. And a late penalty would secure a draw for Fiorentina against Udinese. Still 2 matches left in that match week. Atalanta versus Frosinone and Juventus versus Sassuolo. Inter Milan, they still lead the Serie A. Juventus behind them in second with a game to play today. And, or that's tomorrow, sorry. And then AC Milan and Fiorentina round out the top 4. La Liga, there were some teams missing from this weekend. They were taking place in the Spanish Super Cup going on in the Middle East there, where they had Spanish giants Real Madrid taking on Barcelona. Vinicius Jr. had a hat-trick as Real Madrid took down Barcelona. But in the actual league play in Spain, the weekend started off with Alaves going on the road and surprising Sevilla with a late goal taking that. Las Palmas bounced back from their recent struggles and kind of attributed the Villarreal's struggles of their own with a 3-0 win. Athletic Bilbao, they pick up a big win over Real Sociedad. Real Betis got a win over Granada. And Valencia would beat up on Cadiz. But the biggest surprise was the high-flying Girona going on the road to last place Almeria and finishing a scoreless draw. They picked up lots of goals this season, so that was very surprising. They picked up a late red card in that, which didn't help, but yeah, I didn't expect that kind of performance out of Girona. I won't break down that table because, yeah, there were all kinds of games scattered, so they're not uneven. But we'll go to France. The top-level footy returned to France from their holiday break. You'd have some drama starting the week off with a stoppage time equalizer by Strasbourg to secure a point with Marseille. Reims shocked Monaco going on the road and beating Monaco 3-1. Biggest surprise was Rennes shocking Nice 2-0, and Clermont-Foot beat Nantes 2-1. Brestois beat Montpellier, and Toulouse beat Metz. Lille beat Lorient, and then PSG beat Lens. And an early Le Havre goal, followed by a red card for Lyon's Jake O'Brien, really turned the tide for Le Havre, who picked up a win. And after 18 matches, PSG has a nice, decent lead at the top of the league. Nice, not nice, is in second, followed by Brestois and Monaco. That's it for footy. We're going to the hockey ranks. We got to start with these Edmonton Oilers. My God. 10-game winning streak right now as they're climbing the Western Conference. They needed overtime to win two of those games this past week, but hey, winning's winning. And that's what this team's about right now. They're doing it with excitement. If you haven't watched the Oilers play lately, tune in. You shall be entertained. But don't get lost just in the Oilers and forget about a sea monster out west. I'm talking about the Seattle Kraken. They've been on a little bit of a winning streak of their own. 9 in a row for the Kraken. Excuse me, the Kraken's and me, I guess. But yeah, they're really looking dominant over that stretch. And watch out for the Kraken. The Canucks, they're only on a 5-game winning streak, which is damn awesome. But compared to those long ones, it's not as long, I guess. But Vancouver's been a consistently good team all season. I did not expect this out of them. Sole position of the Pacific Division, and by a decent margin, you know. The Knights have lost 7 of their last 10. They're really missing Aiden Hill between the pipes. The Kings, what the hell's happened with them? Rocking the longest losing streak in the league at 8 games. They're really hurting for a week or a win. At least they had a good start to the season, so at least they have a bit of a buffer, but that buffer's gone now. I mentioned the Kings having the longest losing streak, meaning that means the Sharks won a game. That's right. They beat the Canadiens to end their 12-game losing streak. So that's pretty brutal. But before we leave the West, we have to talk about the second best team in the West right now as of recording, the Winnipeg Jets. Not getting nearly enough love there. They were on an 8-game winning streak until my Flyers took them down on the weekend. But this Winnipeg team's bringing some excitement to the province of Manitoba. You know, they're looking really good, but don't count out the Avalanche. They've kind of found their footing, and Nathan McKinnon's looking freaking good right now. We all know he's good, but man, he's making some nice plays. So the Jets can't get too comfortable in that top spot in their division. We'll go to the East. That conference remains tighter than a pair of jeans at a buffet. The Bruins still lead the Atlantic, but the Panthers are right there nipping at their heels. They flew up the standings riding a 9-game winning streak until the Devils ended that on the weekend. And the Maple Leafs, they've slumped a bit, losers of 3 in a row. The Red Wings and Lightning have kind of creeped up on them in the division. And the Rangers have a slight lead in the Metropolitan. But the Hurricanes and my Flyers are right there. Philly's rocking a 3-game winning streak. You know, they've been on lots of streaks this year, good and bad. But let's continue to ride the good one right now. We'll go to the stats department here. Tampa Bay's Nikita Kucherov continues to lead the league with 72 points. Nathan McKinnock's just 3 points behind him in second place. Austin Matthews continues to lead the league in goals with 33. Florida's Sam Reinhart's just behind him at 31, and a big reason why Florida clawed their way up the Eastern Conference standings. For goaltenders, Winnipeg's Connor Hellebuck, he's leading in goals against average and save percentage with that injury still to Aiden Hill of Vegas. And Alexander Gorgiev still leads the league in wins at 24. Rookie leader in goals and points is still Connor Bedard, despite him missing the last few games with that fractured jaw. And it's a real Buzz Killington, because the number 1 overall pick was supposed to be the youngest person to ever suit up in an all-star game, but being out 6 to 8 weeks, he's not going to be there back in time. Some quick baseball news. You got the Giants, San Francisco Giants signing Jordan Hicks. You might remember he was picked up at the deadline by the Blue Jays. But yeah, he's signing a 4-year, $44 million deal to be put as a starter with the Giants. He was in the relieving role, so this is big for him. Yankees signed Marcus Stroman, another former Jay, to a 2-year contract. He spent the past few years with the Cubs, so good on Stroman. I had to cut out basketball last time, the college hoops. I didn't have enough time, so I'm going to jump to it real quick before I run out of time on it again. And yeah, there was some craziness going on midweek. I'm telling you, on the Tuesday, you had the number 1 and number 2 teams in the country both losing to unranked teams on the same night. Purdue lost their second game of the season, which was also their second in Big Ten play, losing to Nebraska. Cornhuskers got a big lead, and they never looked back. Houston suffered their first loss of the season to the Cyclones of Iowa State. First time since 2016 that, like I said, number 1 and number 2 teams both fell to unranked opponents on the same day. I feel like if you're almost running out of breath saying what the stat is, it might be kind of a weird stat, but that one I thought was kind of unique there. And then the upsets continued the following day. You had the Kansas Jayhawks falling to the University of Central Florida. Some other ranked teams that were knocked down by unranked teams. You had Mississippi State taking down Tennessee. TCU took down Oklahoma in the Big 12. Virginia Tech beating Clemson in the ACC. And Butler took Marquette down in the Big East. UNC, Memphis, and Wisconsin were ranked teams that actually won. Georgia, Ole Miss, Syracuse all looked good, while there was some disappointment in the Pac-12. USC went down to Washington State, and Colorado got surprised by Cal. But the biggest loss for USC was the potential #1 overall pick in the next NBA draft, Isaiah Collier. He's expecting to miss 4 to 6 weeks with a hand injury picked up in that loss. Big bummer for him. On the weekend, Purdue bounced back by thrashing Penn State. Houston would lose their second in a row. They went from undefeated to losing 2 in a row, losing this time the Horned Frogs and TCU. Kansas bounced back with a win over Oklahoma, and then you had some more disappointment. Arizona lost a close one to Washington State, who's been sneakily good of late here. Kentucky lost in overtime to Texas A&M, and West Virginia shocked Texas. Didn't see that coming. UCF had a big win. How would they follow that up? They beat Kansas. Well, they'd lose to Brigham Young. Memphis and UConn actually won their weekend matchups quite easily, which should help them in the rankings. I don't think that Purdue is going to drop from #1, but if they do, UConn Huskies, they could be sneaking back in there, defending champs here. And the women's side, there was some pretty good ball going on. Sometimes the women's ball is more exciting than the men's in college. I'm not fucking around here. And Caitlin Clark, she fucked around and got a triple-double, 25, 10, and 10. And Iowa's win over Purdue. Indiana beat Penn State in some Big Ten play. Huge upset in the Big 12 as Kansas gave Baylor their first loss of the season. And also in the Big 12, Texas beat TCU, Kansas State beat Oklahoma, OK State beat Texas Tech, and Iowa State beat First Virginia, giving them their second loss of the season. And I'm telling you, if you haven't watched Iowa State play, tune in, watch freshman Audi Crook. She can light it up. Fun player to watch. Really something else. The Big East had some blowouts. UConn destroyed Providence. Creighton beat up Butler. And Villanova took down Georgetown. Also during the midweek, powerhouses winning. South Carolina, North Carolina State, LSU, Virginia Tech all won. Florida State, big ACC win over UNC. And Colorado picked up a Pac-12 win over Cal. Stanford stayed at one loss for the season, winning a close one over Utah. Then in the weekend for women's hoops, you had some crazy shit go down. Iowa State came back late. I told you, watch Iowa State. Check them out. They gave Baylor their second loss of the season. Kansas State gave Texas their second loss. UConn, UNLV, Gonzaga, and Marquette all picked up wins. Caitlin Clark, 30 points, 11 assists in her big Iowa win over Indiana. And there were some other big games. Florida State kept the wins coming. They gave Virginia Tech their first loss in ACC play. Colorado, they bounced back looking good, giving Stanford their second loss of the season. It's a tough Utah team needed a bounce-back win, and they got it over Cal. UNC had a bounce-back win in the ACC. Battle of Tigers, Auburn shocked LSU in SEC play, giving the LSU Tigers just their second loss of the season. Then in a city rival battle, UCLA and USC, Trojans gave the Bruins their first loss of the season, so big win for USC there. Women's side for hoops, it's easy to know who #1 is. South Carolina, the last undefeated team left in women's college hoops, but crazy week in sports, y'all, and we got more coming up. Those 2 wildcard games tonight. We got the playoffs continuing for NFL. We got footy, we got hoops. If you want basketball and you didn't hear in any NBA, go to my page. We got NBA talk, nothing but NBA recaps once a week on my page. Check it out. But hey, we got to jump to the short. We had the sports, and here's our short of sorts. And it's been frickin' cold out, minus 50 with the wind. I don't know where y'all are, if you're wherever y'all listening, but it's cold as balls here. And I had to think of something outside, and I'm like, you know what? There were some pretty good times with the Plymouth Neon. Not the Dodge Neon, just the Plymouth Neon. It was as plain Jane as you can get with a car. It had the basics, but one thing it was good at was for me and the boys to cruise around in Warman. It's a little more developed now, but back in the day it wasn't, and we had a nice little road where we could tie ropes up to the back of the Neon, and we'd hop behind it, and we'd lay on the crazy carpets or GTs and get pulled, and shit got wild, yo. You'd be holding on, you'd hit snowbanks, you'd hit each other. One buddy tried standing up, and he fell. We're lucky he didn't get we all probably got concussions. But we're lucky nothing worse happened. And it's not like, these were public or private roads. We were on the public streets. From the streets, yo. But no, shenanigans behind the neon. You know, I know Brad's got some video. I gotta try to see if he'll let me get it on the page. I'll have to give him the copyright money, but I'm pretty sure everyone in Canada has been pulled behind some sort of vehicle in the snow. It's the Canadian way, so it's something you do to just try to justify living in such cold temperatures. You gotta think of something to do. I haven't done a lot of ice fishing yet, hoping to do some soon, but yeah, we'll see what kind of winter times presents itself at the Steelers-Bills game today. I can't wait. It's going to be exciting. But hey, like I said, this is episode 45. We did it. We're 45 episodes deep. Thanks for coming along the whole way. I appreciate it. And like I said, we got some good sports coming up, some real exciting stuff to look forward to. Anybody in the States, happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Do what you got to do to celebrate it in your way. And yeah, guys, thanks again for coming out. Ren City out.